Let me know if this story sounds familiar. You spend hours upon hours on YouTube, surfing through video after video, looking for the perfect camera, looking for that one review that says this is the camera you need to buy. You're watching Peter McKinnon, you're watching The Everyday Dad, you're watching Potato Jet. You repeat this over and over again. You keep watching. You fall into almost a depression. You don't know what camera to buy. But I'm going to let you in on a secret. Nobody actually cares about your camera. Welcome to episode 1 of Almost Professional. My name is Blake Calhoun, and I am a filmmaker, a YouTube creator. I'm sort of a jack of all trades, and you have to be, I think, in this filmmaking world, the climate we live in today. I direct, I produce, I edit, I even shoot. There's a term called predator that has a positive spin, meaning you're a producer, a director, an editor. And ever since I've been pursuing professional filmmaking, really filmmaking at all levels, I've always tried to find the best bang for the buck, the best camera you can or the best editing you can for the cheapest amount of money without, and this is key, sacrificing quality. And so I think that's what really everyone's trying to do when you sit up on YouTube searching for the perfect camera. There is no perfect camera, by the way. But you stay up and you search and you search and you search, and you're just trying to find the right thing that fits your budget. Ultimately, it's the work, not the technology, that speaks to the audience. There are people that will seek out a movie, and probably mainly filmmakers, for example, because it was shot on a smartphone. Like Tangerine, Sean Baker's Sundance favorite from a few years ago, shot on an iPhone 5S, I believe. Or more recently, Steven Soderbergh shot 2 movies, both on iPhones. An iPhone 7 for the horror film he did, and the name escapes me right now. And then the more recent one, High Flying Bird, that actually premiered on Netflix. It was shot on an iPhone 8 Plus. And so I watched those movies mainly because they were shot on an iPhone. But most people had no idea. No regular Joe, and I want to be clear on that, no regular viewing, non-filmmaker audience member ever went to a movie because of what it was shot on. No one watches a YouTube channel because someone shoots on a certain camera. So that's all to say that worrying about a camera, while you do want to be budget conscious, of course, there really is no reason to constantly stress, I guess, for lack of a better word, about what the next best thing is, why you need this certain camera. And this is more of a recent phenomenon, of course, and I say recent being the last 10 years. That may not be recent to some of you, but the DSLR revolution really changed all this. I started filmmaking prior to that. The first movie I shot was on 16 millimeter. And then I shot a movie on mini DV. I did a Warner Brothers series, and I shot it on HDV, actually, a Canon XH-A1. And DSLRs were around then. This was in 2008. But at the time, especially, and even now today, they weren't as well rounded as a traditional camera, especially when it comes to audio. All those projects I shot were fairly successful in each of their own ways, and no one ever questioned what I shot on. I also do a lot of commercial work. I've never once had a commercial client hire me because of a certain camera I owned. They hire you because of your body of work. They hire you because of you. Now, if you're a DP, if you're a cinematographer, you might get hired because you own a RED package or you own an Arri Alexa Mini. But all this is to say, the camera really doesn't matter. It's the end result that matters. I'm looking at 2 movie posters on my wall right now, one for Spilt Milk and another one for a movie called Killing Down. Both these I directed and edited, and both of them were shot on VariCam. And for those not familiar with VariCam, it's a Panasonic camera, and they were both shot at 720p. So not 1080, not 4K, 720p. And both those movies, as independent films go, have done okay. No one ever questioned what they were shot on. I think filmmakers today especially worry too much about the technology. I fall into that trap myself. It's a little bit of a cliche, but it's the story that matters most. Yes, you want it to look good. No one's disputing that. It has to look good. You can't let the visuals or the audio or any technical aspects pull your audience out of your movie, out of your web series, out of your YouTube videos, whatever it is. That kind of goes without saying. But what you actually use to produce it, as long as it looks good, really doesn't matter. I consulted, that may be a big word. I kind of was friendly, gave some friendly advice to filmmaker Shane Carruth. You may know him as the indie film director of Primer that won Sundance back in 2004. And then his more recent film, although it's been, 5 years or so now, was called Upstream Color. At the time maybe it was longer than that actually. At any rate, I was producing a movie at the time, and he came out to my set, asked some different questions about audio, and talked to some different crew members, and I referred some crew to him. But he shot Upstream Color on a GH2. Now, I bring this up only because whenever he went to Sundance or wherever he was at a film festival, that's a really common question that filmmakers get. What did you shoot on? He more or less refused to answer that question. And I think this is a good lesson. He didn't care about the technology. As a matter of fact, after that film, he sold all the gear he bought. At the time, the GH2 was a pretty good camera. He wanted the work to speak for itself. He didn't want to get bogged down with all the technical aspects when it comes to marketing the film or even talking about the film. He didn't want people to come into this film thinking, oh, it was just shot on XYZ. It was shot on a consumer GH2. And if you've seen that film, you would never know what it was shot on. You don't even care. So don't worry about your camera. No one cares about your camera, except for maybe filmmakers at a film festival. But the most important people are your audience or your clients. They don't care. So definitely don't wait to get the perfect camera. It could be your smartphone, it could be a DSLR, it could be a mirrorless camera. Whatever you can afford, get out there and shoot your project, whatever that is. I've taken that mentality my entire career. I mentioned earlier I shot a movie on 16 millimeter, and that was when I was in my 20s. Then I shot a movie on mini DV. I shot a web series on a Canon 7D. I shot another series I mentioned earlier for Warner Brothers on HDV. And the whole point to this is I didn't wait. I know far too many people that sit around and wait. I got to wait to afford the Red camera. I got to wait to afford the Arri Alexa. I got to wait to afford film. And they never do anything. So it's about creating content. It's not about the technology that got you there. Technology is a means to an end. And don't get me wrong, I love tech. I make my living using awesome tech. But no one really cares, especially when they're watching your movie. I'm creating this podcast to be almost an extension of my YouTube channel. where I can go deeper into different subjects and talk in more depth about topics that I don't really get to cover on my YouTube channel. It's mainly geared towards mobile and DIY filmmaking. And while I will discuss that and talk about that in this podcast, I might go a little more into the craft and mechanics of filmmaking more so than the technology, although I will definitely dive into that as well. And if you're wondering about the name of the podcast, I'll get to that in a future episode, but it's definitely an inside joke and a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But if you work in this industry, and especially in independent film, and if you're a freelancer, you might have an idea without me explaining it too much. If you're into mobile filmmaking and use the Filmic Pro app, then definitely consider checking out the course that I created called the Complete Guide to Filmic Pro. It's almost 3 hours of content covering everything from the basic controls to more complex things like doing focus pulls. I think this course can really help you unlock the potential of this app. It's quite a deep app, really. And if you use the link in the show notes, it will automatically give you 10% off the course. So thank you for listening. This has been Almost Professional, and I am your host, Blake Calhoun. And I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.